I just couldn't believe it. I was out. I felt like I had just got released from prison or something. Things were looking up. Treatment was going well. I was feeling better. The same night, I was having a lot of trouble breathing. So at that point, I was just like, okay, well, I can't deny this any longer. This is really bad. We ended up going to the ER that night, which was pretty crushing. What is up, you guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you don't know who I am, my name is Jacob Green, and today is going to be another edition of the series titled My Cancer Story. Today is going to be part 5. If you haven't already, go watch 1 through 4 so you're not in the dark, and also so you don't miss out on all the other craziness. First off, sorry for turning the comments off of the last episode. I fixed that issue. Did not mean to do that. So yeah, I will make sure that does not happen this time. So that all being said, let's just get right into it, picking up where I left off in the last episode with the whole chest tube fiasco. So as you guys know, I was leaking some fluid out of my side after I got the chest tube pulled. So right after that occurred, I called my nurse in. She came in, she was very confused. She had no idea what was going on because they weren't made aware that I was actually getting the chest tube pulled that day. So they were completely just confused. And at that point, they called a couple more nurses in, and there was probably about 5 to 10 nurses in my room all at once. And they just put me on my side after figuring out what the issue was, and they were asking me a bunch of questions. You know, if I'm all right, if I have any shortness of breath, stuff like that. The reason they put me on my side is so that we can put some pressure on it and so no more fluid gets out. Obviously, this is a very serious issue because since there is a hole, air can now get in, which could end up collapsing a lung and whatnot. So I ended up laying there on my side for a couple of hours while they put together a CT-guided chest tube placement. So after about a couple hours or 3 hours or so, they were transferring me down to get that done. And it ended up being very successful. This one was probably the least painful so far. It ended up draining 2 liters of fluid on top of everything that came out of me already, which was quite a bit. I can actually show you guys a picture of what they collected initially from that. It's not too graphic, don't worry. Yeah, so after that, I had another chest tube. So the same day I pulled my chest tube out, I got another one right in the same place. So that was incredibly painful. I actually talked to my cousin about this the other day when I saw him, and he said that chest tubes are sometimes one of the most painful things that anybody ever experiences in a hospital, period, which was a little bit surprising to me. I knew it was bad, I just didn't know it was, I guess, that painful. So yeah, that was my 3rd chest tube. I ended up getting 5, which if you guys continue on in the series with me, you will find out how. But for now, that was my last one. Soon after that, the chest tube stopped draining and they were able to discharge me, and I was free. I got out. February 27th, I believe, is the day I was released, which was incredible. Incredible, incredible. It was a very surreal experience, actually. I felt almost like everything was fake. I just couldn't believe it. I was out. I felt like I had just got released from prison or something. The car ride home, I just was like looking around like, wow, I had direct sunlight on me, which was a first in a while because they didn't let me go outside of the specific floor that I was on. So the best I could do was look out my window to see outside, but I never got actual direct sunlight for several weeks in a row. So yes, finally that initial hospital stay, 3 to 4 weeks in Emory, and then immediately right after that, 3 to 4 weeks at Inova. Finally, that was all done. And I just went home. I wasn't connected to anything, so I took a shower for probably way longer than I should have. Something as simple as a shower was just the best thing ever to me at that point. So yes, before I left the hospital, my regiment outpatient was all set. And the plan was that I would have 6 total cycles and the next 5 would all be outpatient. I did, however, find out what exactly my regimen is. So for you nurses or doctors or even oncologists specifically who are interested, this is my regimen. So first off, obviously I get blood work in between to decide on the dosage. Usually my dose went up on most of the chemotherapies throughout my treatment. But anyways, day 1 was the rituximab. And as soon as that was done infusing, they would hook me up to my first 48-hour bag. And this comprised of etoposide, doxorubicin, and vincristine. So those were the 3 in the first 48-hour bag. And after that 48 hours, when the pump was telling me it was almost finished, I would go back and then I would get the second 48-hour bag. So it was 96 hours total of those 3 chemotherapies. And then after my second 48-hour bag was done, I would go back and get one more infusion on day 5, and this was cyclophosphamide. That one's a big one. And then all throughout, I would have 100 milligrams of prednisone daily, which is a oral steroid, not an anabolic steroid. I am a natural. Somehow I get a lot of people saying that I'm not natural. I'm on performance enhancing drugs, which is insane to me because I'm on chemo. Definitely wouldn't do that at the same time. So yeah, if you're interested, that is my regimen. Going back to the first couple of days I was out though of the hospital. At that point we were just monitoring the chest fluid and we were monitoring the air pocket in my chest. So just getting some x-rays. There was still a little bit of fluid in there accumulating, but it wasn't anything too alarming to the point where I had to do anything about it. And then my breathing was still continuing to get better. My heart rate as well was still going down. So this was all good things. Pretty soon after I got out of the hospital, I did have to shave my head because my hair started falling out pretty quickly. I ended up going with just a little buzz cut, which that didn't even last long. Honestly, I didn't mind how I looked too much. You can see in this video, my wife was having quite the time doing that. She found it very funny, which it was. It was honestly just like, it was a fun time in a weird way. Just laughing through it all, I guess you could say. But it was pretty funny. Despite my face, it was funny to me as well. Anyways, so far I wasn't experiencing any side effects really. No nausea, definitely not a lack of appetite. If anything, my appetite was up. I was definitely getting tired though. I was sleeping like a baby every night. That was honestly kind of nice. Because for me, I've always had sleep problems ever since I was a little kid. So it can be hard sometimes to fall asleep. By the way, me and my wife, we're staying at my parents' place for the time being as the Army works on getting us a real duty station. Right now we're in a little bit of a special scenario and they're trying to get a compassionate reassignment. And we are still currently with my parents. Thank God for that. I don't even know what we would have done otherwise. So very, very blessed to have my parents' support in all of this for housing and whatnot. And then also one more note, I was continuing the blood clot treatment with Lovenox. So it's kind of like an EpiPen. My wife would take my stomach and poke it in there in the morning and at night. Those are kind of annoying, but nothing compared to everything else I experienced. And eventually I switched to the Eliquis, which is a pill form. And then that ran out, as you guys know from the last episode. And I'm not going to buy it for $700 without insurance covering it. So things were good, honestly. I can't really complain too much. I was definitely very nervous about how the chemo was going to affect me at first. And I didn't know what to expect exactly because everybody has a different experience. Fast forward to March 12th, I got my port placed, which I still have right here. If you guys don't know what that is, you can use it to get blood work. It's primarily for the chemotherapy treatment. It's just like a little button almost, And when they need to access it, they just poke a needle through here and it goes to the bottom, and then you can infuse the chemo or IV, whatever it is, through the port. So I got that placed on March 12th, and the day after I started my second cycle. So this was my first cycle outpatient. Yeah, I was just kind of still processing everything that happened to me throughout all these hospital stays and all these experiences, just kind of digesting, I guess. And also I was lifting. Actually, one of the first days I got back into the gym, this little air pocket that I was dealing with bubbled up, which spooked me a little bit, but it turns out it wasn't a big deal, and it eventually went away on its own. So yeah, I was like continuing to lift and exercise and be active as much as I could, and I was really dialed in on my nutrition and all of that. Fast forward again to April 5th, that was cycle 3. Again, same thing, not experiencing too much side effects, still doing okay. During this, or a little bit after this cycle, on April 11th, actually, me and my wife went out on a little getaway, still in Virginia, but we got to see some underground caverns. This was one of the caverns in Virginia that you can go to. And we were just in a little Airbnb tucked away in the forest. This was like a surprise from my parents and my wife. So that was really cool. Really nice to just act like none of this stuff ever happened for a moment and just have a little bit of peace in nature, I guess you could say. So then around April 21st, I found out that I was in remission based on a PET scan that I got, or it may have been a little bit after that, because I got the PET scan on April 21st. Very soon after I found out from the results that I was in remission, which was huge. So that was a good sign. I think it was somewhat to be expected at that point in treatment, going through that much chemo. I mean, a lot of chemo too. It was about 100 hours each cycle. So, but yeah, still amazing news. And then April 24th was also the start of my 4th cycle. This is when the chemo started to kick a little bit, which makes sense because I was in remission. So at this point, the chemo has nothing else to attack except for my body because the cancer cells are already dead. There is a mass there. There actually still is a mass there. And at this point, it's just scar tissue. It's not a tumor. It's not cancerous, as far as we know. I even got an extra blood test, which is a new test that they do where they take a chunk of my biopsy and they take my blood and see if that specific cancer cells are in my blood. And that came back negative. Like I said, it's new, so it's not foolproof by any means, but it's still a good sign. So yeah, like I said, the chemo was definitely kicking at that point, but I still pushed through. I still was lifting. I even managed to put up a 600 kg total, which comprised of a 210 kilo squat, which is about 463 pounds, a 170 kilo bench, about 375 pounds, and a 220 kilo deadlift, which is about 485 pounds. I don't know if those numbers mean anything to you guys, but for you powerlifters, it might. That was great. It was a really good sign, despite how I was feeling, because I was starting to feel very, very bad leading up to this. I was getting shortness of breath again, and honestly, I could feel a lot of fluid accumulating around my lungs again. And obviously, I knew exactly what that felt like, and I was trying to deny it because I did not want to go back to the hospital. I didn't want to have any extra hospital visits that were unnecessary. But right after I had that really heavy lifting session, the same night, I was having a lot of trouble breathing. I was rolling around in bed. My wife was noticing, and at one point I started wheezing. So at that point I was just like, okay, well, I can't deny this any longer. This is really bad. And I probably should have said something sooner, but I didn't. And we ended up going to the ER that night, which was pretty crushing. You know, like things were looking up. Treatment was going well. I was feeling better, even though I was starting to feel a little bit worse from the chemo. But besides that, things were good. And I was really trying to avoid any more hospital stays, but I just couldn't at that point. So yeah, that was heartbreaking. Had to go back in. Me and my wife were just praying about it and just trying to keep level-headed and not overreact. So started off at Loudon Inova in Ashburn, and then we switched over to Fairfax. They transferred me immediately as the stay kind of escalated. So yeah, that is all I have for you guys today. Most likely this will be a 6-part series, and I will go over the whole hospital stay in the next episode, because that is a whole story in and of itself. Just when I thought things were really, really going to be okay, and I was through the worst of it, things changed, and I definitely wasn't. Stay tuned to find out what happens next, and hopefully we can complete this story and move on. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate all the support on this series. It means the world to me. I hope that I can help any of you, just whatever God wills with this series. And I appreciate you all watching and commenting. If you guys have any suggestions about any other videos that you'd like me to make, whether it's related to this or not, maybe even more stuff about God. I'd love to talk about God. I can share a little bit of my testimony. Anything you guys are thinking, just put it down in the comments. But other than that, like, subscribe, turn the bell on so you don't miss my next post, especially not in this series. Just remember, guys, when we are weak, then we are strong. God bless.